Elijah stands up tall from his classmates and makes his way over to the front of the stage. Don adjusts the microphone as Elijah takes a small breath, preparing himself for his speech.
Hello, families and fellow teachers. We're so excited to be here today to celebrate our graduation from 5th grade. It's been an amazing year, filled with learning, laughter, and new friendships. We're so grateful for our teachers who have helped us grow, and to our parents for their endless support. One of my favorite memories from this year was when we built our lava lamps in science. It was challenging, but we learned so much about teamwork and problem solving. I also want to thank Ms. Bonacci for always being there to answer our questions and make learning fun. Here's to moving on, making memories, and celebrating our last few days as a 5th grader,
Elijah says, speaking loudly. The audience claps, some even cheering on the boy's enthusiastic speech. Don watches, impressed with the kid's public speaking skills. It wasn't easy standing in front of a crowd like this, but Elijah handled it with grace. That was fantastic, Elijah, Don complimented, patting the little boy on the shoulder. Elijah beamed, clearly proud of himself. He made his way back to his classmates, who all whispered and giggled, a few giving him a light teasing for his speech. Thank you, Elijah. That was a wonderful speech. Next up, we have Pedro Sanchez from Miss Parker's class. Let's hear it, Pedro, Don says, clapping his hands. Pedro, the confident boy with a smile plastered across his face, stood up confidently and walked to the front of the stage. He had an air of self-assurance that made him stand out amongst the other kids. He stood directly behind the microphone, looking at the sea of faces in the audience, his chest puffed out slightly. Pedro takes a moment to compose himself, then lifts his head to speak.
Good evening, families and teachers.
He starts off with a confident smile.
We're so happy to be here tonight celebrating our graduation from the 5th grade. One of the things I'm proudest of this year is the presentation we did on climate change. We spent a lot of time researching and brainstorming, and we did a great job at explaining such a complex topic.
The audience applauded, some even whistling softly at his delivery. Pedro's smile widened as he continued, clearly enjoying the attention.
Another highlight for me was the field trip we took to the local animal shelter. Seeing all the animals up close really made an impact on us.
He takes a quick glance back at his classmates, some of them nodding in agreement.
I also want to thank our amazing teachers who've gone above and beyond, especially Ms. Parker, who taught us so much this year.
The applause grew louder, echoing off the walls of the cafeteria.
Lastly, I just want to say,
he pauses, his expression growing more sentimental.
I will miss this class, and all of you. I've made some amazing friends this year.
Thank you, Pedro! Don cheers and claps loudly. Your speech was awesome, he says, applauding. All right, our final student speech will be presented by Thomas Moreno from Miss Batalia's class. Thomas, please come up and take center stage, Don announced. Thomas, the quiet and soft-spoken boy of Miss Batalia's class, stands up and makes his way to the stage. He's a bit more nervous than the other two, but he takes a deep breath as he stands behind the microphone. Good evening, everyone, he stutters, the nerves beginning to show in his voice. The audience smiles warmly, their attention fully on the little boy. He continues, taking a deep breath. The boy stumbles on his syllables a little, the words not forming properly. He's obviously nervous, but he pushes through, determined to say what he wants. He tries again, taking another deep breath. The cafeteria is completely silent, the audience understanding the boy's struggle. Don watches, knowing that Thomas just needs a little bit of time to form his thoughts. Tom starts again, stumbling. He's getting more and more frustrated, tears welling up in his eyes. Don feels a pang in his heart, understanding what's going on. The audience remains silent, their eyes on Thomas. There's a mix of impatience and anticipation in the air, and it's becoming clear that this isn't going as smoothly as planned. Cara sees the struggle in the boy's eyes. She stands up tall and lightly pulls him off the stage. That's all right, honey. No one's forcing you to speak. Would you like me to continue? Cara offered, nodding her head understandingly as her eyes met with his. Thomas nods weakly, his breath shaky with the effort of holding back tears. He takes comfort in Cara's kind eyes and understanding gaze. He takes a step back, watching Cara step onto the stage in his place. Cara clears her throat and smiles as she adjusted the microphone height. Hello and good evening, everyone. I remember when I was really nervous about starting 5th grade. I was scared of making new friends and doing well in my classes, but with the help of our teachers and classmates, I was able to overcome my fears and have a lot of fun. I'm excited about the new opportunities that await us in middle school. I know we're all ready for the next adventure. Thank you to our parents and families for your love, encouragement, and for always being there for us. Cara says, finishing off the speech. She smiled widely and stood up tall as the audience began clapping. Thank you, Cara, Don whispered, nodding his head. Cara led Thomas off the stage and to his seat in their row. She makes her way back over to the wall where Tanya and Michelle were standing. I really wish I didn't have to do that, she commented under her breath. Thank you, Cara and Thomas. Now, it is time for me to present the graduating class of 2025. Please stand up in a single file line in alphabetical order, just like we practice. Don nodded his head. Behind the stage, Margaret darkened the lights and opened the curtains to a projector screen. She put their end-of-the-year slideshow into full screen and played a feel-good tone to go along with it. The students began to stand up. Miss Bonacci's class entered from the right side of the stage, while Miss Battaglia's class entered from the left side of the stage. Miss Parker's class entered from the back door leading to the back of the stage. Michelle, Cara, and Tanya all stood in awe, watching their students head up to the stage to receive their certificates. As the students lined up, some with wide smiles of excitement and some with shy, nervous expressions, parents in the audience snapped pictures and recorded videos. They were all so proud of the students. Seeing them in their graduation caps and gowns was a touching sight. Each student came up to the stage slowly, shaking Don's hand and posing for a quick photo for their parents. Don stood tall and proud, smiling as he handed each student their little diploma. The slideshow played in the background, and cheers from the audience were radiant. Liz was also on stage, reading the names aloud and handing each student their certificate. The process was long, but it was worth it. The students were so excited and happy, and the parents were equally joyful, snapping pictures left and right. The atmosphere was filled with pride and joy as each kid received their certificate and took their picture. Liz was doing a great job reading each name clearly and handing off the certificates one by one. Don's smile never faded as he shook each kid's hand and posed for a photo. Margaret kept snapping pictures behind the scenes, taking photos of every moment. After announcing all of the graduates, Don took a breath and stood up to the microphone. Congratulations to all of our graduates. We wish you a safe and happy summer. Good night, everyone, he called out, clapping. The audience bursted into applause, clapping loudly and whistling. Parents shouted out words of congratulations, some even crying from pride. The kids all smiled, happy with their achievement. Michelle, Cara, and Tanya all beamed from where they were standing in the back, also clapping loudly for their students. After a few moments, the applause dies down and the noise of the cafeteria returns to normal. Parents pick up their bags and children, the kids excitedly chatting and running around. The ceremony is officially over. Don and Margaret began gathering the equipment and putting it away, exhausted and relieved that everything had went smoothly. Michelle, Cara, Liz, and Tanya all helped to fold up the chairs from the open space and set them down in a big black cart. The PTO team and Margaret pack away the equipment on the stage. Don lowers the microphone stand and takes the microphone off, handing it to Miss Jones. Liz let out a sigh as she helps the other girls. That went smoother than I expected, she commented. I'm so glad he didn't mention the last part of his speech. He ended up working around what Margaret had wrote for him in the first place. I guess he took my advice to the heart, she shrugged, glancing at the other girls. Michelle and Cara stopped in their tracks after listening to what Liz had said. What last part? Michelle asked, confused. Was he going to mention something about the charter school? Cara rolled her eyes. He would have blown the whole thing if he stood up there and told everyone he was planning on renovating South Street. So it's probably best that he didn't say anything at all. I can't believe he was really going to announce those plans, Michelle murmured, shaking her head. The girls continued to work in silence for a few moments, processing what Liz had just revealed. Then Michelle suddenly stopped. Hey, do you actually think he's going to go through with it? Like, start all of those renovations and turn this into some sort of charter school? She asked. It sounds so drastic, Cara said, also stopping her work. No way. Margaret told him he wouldn't be able to renovate in one summer, and gave him this whole pep talk about how he's in way too over his head. I mean, he's crazy if he thinks this is happening, Liz says, rubbing her neck. You're right, Michelle nodded in agreement. I mean, seriously, he has no idea how much time and money renovations like that would take. And then hiring the staff and everything? She shook her head. And finding new parents who can actually afford those crazy tuition costs, Liz added, rubbing her temples. Cara shook her head in disbelief. He's got to be insane. It's just not doable. The three girls paused in conversation as they noticed Margaret and Don pass by, carrying equipment back to the media center. Don gives the girls a once-over, sensing that they were gossiping about him. He shakes his head in disgust. What the hell was that? Liz mumbled, lifting the chairs up and throwing them into the big black cart. He's just, so stubborn. I can't believe Margaret wrote his speech. Were you eavesdropping again, Liz? How did that all go down? Michelle asked. Yeah, I was passing by to ask him how his speech was going, and I happened to overhear what was going on, Liz said casually. And I saved his ass. I had to, she sighed in frustration. As she was talking to him, she basically wrote the whole speech for him. She offered to type it up and print it, and of course he allowed her. He said himself he wouldn't be able to do it alone. I could tell he was nervous before rehearsing it to us. He kept stumbling over his words. He was stuttering and stumbling and nervous, and it was a mess. We would have been up there all night if I hadn't stepped in and said something. Cara rolled her eyes. I hope you told him he's got to stop letting other people do things for him. Babying him when he's supposed to be leading? What kind of example is he setting for the students here? Unbelievable. Michelle scoffed. He's a fully grown man, for God's sake. You think he'd be able to handle a simple graduation ceremony? I tried, Liz responded, exasperated. But you know Don. He's very set in his ways. Michelle huffed in agreement. Yeah, it's like talking to a wall with that one. Honestly, I just wish he'd be more, mature, Cara interjected, clearly frustrated. Liz sighed and paused. I wish Margaret would have let him write his own speech. It was very frustrating to watch. Cara sighed, putting the rest of the chairs into the cart. I have an idea, she chirped. Since the school year is over and there's no recovery from the aftermath of this ceremony, we should head to my house to celebrate for the end of this thunderous school year. Come on, girls, let's head to my house for drinks. Does that sound like a good idea? Cara offered. Michelle and Liz immediately nod their heads. Yes, I would love that. I could give you the details about the conversation he had with Margaret over drinks. It's probably better to discuss it in private anyways, Liz says in agreement. Michelle smiled warmly. I'm in, she says. Tanya, Cara called out. You want to join us? Tanya shook her head silently. Nah, that's all right. I'm pretty shot. I might just head on home to see Nicole. Sorry, girls, she nodded. Hey, no worries. We can totally see you another time. Have fun with Nicole, Cara called back, waving. Tanya sighed and waved as the girls exited the cafeteria. They gather their things, which are sitting by the front entrance on a small side table. They head out from the front doors and follow the path into the parking lot. Michelle and Liz start up their cars and follow Cara to their house. The girls pull into Cara's driveway and park their cars. They climb out and make their way up to the front door, chatting and laughing as they go. I can't believe we survived another year, Michelle says, shaking her head. Seriously, Liz replies. I thought this year was going to be the end of me. Cara unlocks the door and forces it open. She leads the two girls inside as they trail behind her. Yeah, it seems like it was never ending, she commented. But we finished it all together. That's the most important part, she says, dropping her bag on the dining room table. She slips off her heels and her earrings and makes her way over to the living room where the bar is, while Liz and Michelle take a seat on the couch. That's true, Liz said. We finished it together, and it was the first real time we all worked together. I have to say, I really miss my job. I know I got a little overworked at first, but the truth is, I really miss working with you guys, and I'm so glad Don offered me the position back after Marnie was fired. However, I really hope Don is planning on hiring another person in the office. It's no secret he needs another person to work the assistant principal role. Liz sighed, pausing for a moment as she collected her thoughts. Cara popped open a bottle of champagne and smiled warmly. It's nice to hear you're grateful for us, Liz. I'm so glad we kept in touch after the intervention. You've been a huge part of our friend group, and we are so lucky you got closer to us. Cara nodded. But yeah, in addition to the school year finally coming to an end, Don does need to make some changes. And I'm not talking about changing South Street and renovating all in one summer. Since Marge talked him out of it, he better not be coming up with other ways to do it. Cara takes a heavy sigh as she poured 3 glasses of champagne. Michelle forced a cigarette through her lips as she spoke. Next year will be Don's second year as principal. Hopefully he cleans up his act. I would say he could take a few pointers from Marnie, but that's not happening anytime soon since she's back in rehab. Liz nodded, grabbing a lighter from Michelle. Marnie wouldn't be able to give good advice to Don. She would lie, get caught in her tracks, and then she would make up something on the spot. We know how she operates by now. She's a fucking mess. Thank God Rebecca saw right through her lies and threw her back into rehab. And Don. Oh, God. If he's truly in love with her, he'll fall right for her trap. Liz shook her head in disbelief, lighting the cigarette. Cara hummed in agreement. We all know how Marnie operates. She's manipulative as hell. Michelle nodded in agreement, exhaling a steam of smoke. And Don seems so gullible, like he'll fall for any pretty face that shows some interest in him. Speaking of which, before we get into Marge and Don, has anyone spoken to Rebecca after the wine tasting event? I know it was a few weeks ago, but I don't know, I'm getting a little worried about her. We've all been so stressed about graduation and the end of the year, I've just been kind of wondering how her rehab sessions have been going. Liz shrugged. No, Cara replied, furrowing her brow. I haven't heard anything since the wine tasting event. Michelle shook her head, too. Yeah, same here. I've been so caught up in everything going on. Maybe we should give her a call, check in on her, Cara suggested, a hint of concern in her voice. God, no. Tonight is not about Rebecca, Marnie, and Don drama. I was just curious. My bad. We don't have to call her. Please don't call her. Liz's face falls into her hands. Yeah, you're right. I can't stand her annoying high-pitched voice anyways, Cara chuckled nervously. Yeah, let's put all that nonsense out of our heads for tonight. Tonight is all about us and celebrating our accomplishments, right? Michelle said, lifting her glass of champagne towards the other girls. Right. Cara and Liz grinned in agreement, lifting their glasses to meet Michelle's. To surviving another year, Cara toasted. Hear, hear, Michelle agreed, clinking her glass with Liz's and Cara's. The girls all took a sip of their champagne, the bubbly liquid feeling light and refreshing as it slid down their throats. Cara let out a satisfied sigh. Ah, that feels good. So what exactly, what happened when you were eavesdropping? Michelle asked Liz.